Why did the Celtics really waive JD Davison? The truth might be bigger than anyone expected. Was this just about money? Or did Boston quietly just clear the runway for something far more explosive? At first glance, waiving JD Davison looks like a routine cap management move, the kind of dry transaction that rarely makes headlines. But look closer, this wasn't only about dropping below the second apron, it was a precise, calculated shift in momentum, a subtle message sent across the league. And it raises a dangerous question: what's coming next? Davison, last year's G League MVP, wasn't just another project. He dominated for the Maine Celtics, led them to the finals, and proved himself as a developmental gem. Yet Boston didn't hesitate. They moved on, fast, no farewell, no emotional press release. Just a cold decision that instantly opened up financial breathing room and, more importantly, a roster spot. That's where things start to get interesting. By waiving Davison, the Celtics not only cleared his $2.3 million salary, but regained first apron status. That opens a floodgate of possibilities. They can now send cash in trades, combine multiple players in deals, or finally use a TPE sitting in their back pocket. And with names like Anthony Simons and Georges Niang being whispered in backroom conversations, this kind of flexibility isn't optional, it's essential. But here's the twist no one is talking about. This isn't just about flexibility. This could be about readiness. A team doesn't make surgical moves like this unless something is either already in motion or about to be. And that brings us to a name many fans weren't expecting to hear again: Ben Simmons. Quiet rumors have linked Boston to him in recent weeks. Yes, the same Simmons who was once considered untouchable. And now, with an open spot and restored cap options, that once impossible signing suddenly looks viable. Would that be risky? Absolutely. But remember, Boston is not playing it safe anymore. After years of close calls, they finally broke through. Now, they're moving like a team that isn't afraid to swing big again. Could they flip part of their bench for Simons and filler contracts? Could they stash an expiring deal while targeting a bigger trade down the line? Did Boston just trigger a hidden chain reaction? The JD Davison move is only the beginning. What if I told you the Celtics' latest move wasn't just about the second apron? What if it was a coded signal, a strategic sacrifice that sets off something far more significant? When Boston waived JD Davison, many assumed it was just another financial adjustment, a quiet trimming of salary to stay under the CBA's punishing threshold. But beneath that surface lies a far deeper plan, one that could reshape the Celtics roster and maybe even the future of the Eastern Conference. Let's be clear, Boston didn't just cut a fringe player, they waived a reigning G League MVP, a 22-year-old who dropped over 25 points per game on nearly 50% shooting, a player who was bursting with upside. So why let go of that kind of raw potential for what seems like a minor financial tweak? Because this wasn't only about Davison, this was about unlocking power. By dropping below the second apron, the Celtics didn't just save money, they regained leverage, the ability to send cash in trades, the flexibility to stack contracts in a deal, the option to activate a dormant trade exception, the right to use the taxpayer mid-level exception if needed. That might sound like front office jargon, but it's a loaded toolbox. And it was off limits until Davison's deal came off the books. Now ask yourself, why would Brad Stevens go to this extent, especially after already moving on from Kristaps Porzingis and Jrue Holiday? Wasn't that enough? Apparently not. Something bigger is brewing, and this subtle move may have just cracked open the door. The Celtics now sit with an open roster spot, a fully retooled financial engine, and a team built around a core that just won the title, without needing to burn their deepest assets, all while their star player, Jayson Tatum, works quietly through Achilles rehab, buying the front office time in silence. But silence can be dangerous in this league. It usually precedes shockwaves. The real question is, what is Brad Stevens waiting for? He could sign a veteran now. He could swing a trade before training camp. Or, more provocatively, he could be holding that spot for a mid-season reinforcement, a name no one sees coming, a player who gets bought out, or a contract that gets dumped, or even a blockbuster move from a desperate team at the deadline. Think Ben Simmons. Think Anthony Simons. Think someone we're not even discussing yet. Imagine this: Jayson Tatum, barely 19, standing in the shadows of veterans, thinking about leaving the team that had just drafted him third overall, a future franchise player, already doubting his place in the Celtics blueprint. Sounds impossible, right? But it nearly happened. What shifted everything? Not a trade, not a locker room speech, a freak injury, a single moment that violently cracked open the door to Tatum's future. and changed the trajectory of the Celtics forever. In the summer of 2017, Boston looked like it was ready to crown someone else. Gordon Hayward arrived as an all-star, coming off his peak in Utah, armed with a max contract and Brad Stevens' full confidence. Tatum, raw but ready, suddenly found himself as the third or fourth option, stuck behind Hayward, Kyrie Irving, and a crowded wing rotation. According to Hayward himself, Tatum seriously considered leaving. Let that sink in. The face of the 2024 NBA champions almost left before he even started. The turning point. Just 5 minutes into the opening game of the season, Hayward went up for a lob and came crashing down with a sickening snap. A fractured tibia, a dislocated ankle, silence in the arena, shock in the locker room. And in that moment of chaos, something completely unexpected began to take shape. Tatum didn't just get minutes, he got responsibility. He got the ball in crunch time. He got playoff reps against LeBron, under pressure. He wasn't supposed to carry the franchise that early, but the NBA doesn't wait for anyone. And Tatum didn't hesitate. Would any of that have happened if Hayward stayed healthy? Would the Celtics have drawn up the same plays, given him the same minutes, let him take over in the postseason? Probably not. Sometimes, opportunity only shows up when plans fall apart, and in Boston's case, one man's tragedy became the foundation of another's dynasty. Now fast forward to today. Tatum is rehabbing a torn Achilles. The timing couldn't be worse. Just months after leading the Celtics to a historic title, he's watching from the sidelines. But here's the difference. This time, there's no doubt, no uncertainty, no whispers about his future. Boston made it clear. Tatum is the franchise, the untouchable, the cornerstone. Every decision runs through him. Why are the Celtics betting on Ben Simmons now? The answer might redefine how they plan to win again. At first glance, it feels like a gamble. A three-time All-Star who vanished from the spotlight. A player once billed as the next great point forward, now fighting to stay in the league. And yet, here we are, with the Boston Celtics suddenly emerging as the favorites to sign Ben Simmons. The question that no one dares to ask is the one that matters most. Why now? Why him? Why Boston? This isn't nostalgia. This isn't charity. This is strategy. And if Simmons lands in Boston, it won't be because of his past. It'll be because of what the Celtics believe he can still become. Look deeper. Boston didn't just randomly stumble onto Simmons after striking out on Damian Lillard and losing Marcus Smart and Jrue Holiday. They made a deliberate shift. First, they dropped JD Davison, freeing up a roster spot. Then they got under the second apron, unlocking trade options, salary flexibility, and the ability to make targeted veteran additions. And now, with their perimeter defense thinned out, the Celtics are moving like a team that already has a vision. For Simmons, not a backup plan, a weapon. Most fans remember Simmons for what went wrong: the broken jumper, the playoff collapses, the mental and physical roadblocks. But Brad Stevens isn't running this team with public sentiment. He's looking at a 6'10" playmaker who can guard 5 positions, push the pace in transition, and completely alter matchups without needing to score. Can you imagine Simmons leading Boston's second unit, defending the other team's best scorer, while feeding shooters like Sam Hauser and Baylor Shireman? That kind of versatility isn't just rare, it's playoff gold, and Boston knows it. People forget that Simmons was an all-NBA level defender when healthy. In Philadelphia, he smothered wings, ran the fast break like a freight train, and dictated tempo without needing the ball to score. The Celtics don't need him to be a 20-point scorer. They need a connector, a disruptor, a player who changes the rhythm of a game without hijacking the offense. And that's exactly what Simmons can still be, if used correctly. Add to that the fact that Boston's coaching staff has shown they can rehab careers and manage roles effectively. Joe Mazzulla isn't going to throw Simmons into the fire. He'll use him with precision, controlled minutes, specific matchups, low pressure, high impact. But the most intriguing angle is what this move would signal. The Celtics aren't resting. After a championship, they're thinking about postseason chess. Every decision is about optionality, lineup versatility, defensive identity. They know the East is getting stronger. Milwaukee is coming. New York is reloaded, and Cleveland just added size and experience. Boston isn't panicking. They're adapting.